The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from 1,000 different worlds. Ambassador Day One stood alone in the center, surrounded by a sea of alien faces. Some had multiple eyes, others had scales or feathers, and a few were beings of pure energy contained in mechanical bodies. But all of them stared at him with the same cold judgment. He had been Earth's voice for 3 years, 3 long years of careful diplomacy, of choosing every word with precision, of bowing and scraping before beings who thought humanity was barely worth acknowledging. And now it was ending not with honor but with betrayal. The lead prosecutor, a tall insectoid creature from the Taurian collective, clicked its mandibles as it read the charges. Sedition, conspiracy against the council, violation of the non-interference directive. Daewon knew every single charge was fabricated. He had broken no laws, made no threats, conspired with no one. His only crime was being human in a galaxy that feared what humanity might become. Ambassador Daewon of Earth, the High Arbiter said, its voice translated into a dozen languages simultaneously. You have been found guilty of crimes against the Galactic Council. Have you any final words before sentence is carried out? Daewon looked up at the viewing gallery where other ambassadors sat. Some looked away in shame. Others watched with satisfaction. A few of the younger species representatives had tears in their eyes, understanding that justice was not being served here today. This was politics at its cruelest. He thought about his wife back on Earth, about his daughter who was just starting university. He thought about the billions of humans living their lives, unaware that their ambassador was about to die for crimes he did not commit. And he thought about the secrets he knew, the contingency plans that Earth's government had prepared for exactly this moment. You believe this makes you strong, Daewon said, his voice calm and clear. You believe that killing me will keep humanity in its place. You are wrong. Earth remembers its children, every single one. The High Arbiter made a gesture. The neural disruptor activated. Pain exploded through Daewon's mind, white-hot and all-consuming. He fell to his knees, then to the floor. His last thought was a hope that Earth would make them regret this day. Then there was nothing. The transmission reached Earth 17 minutes later, traveling faster than light through the quantum communication network. It arrived at the Unified Earth Command headquarters in Geneva, where the most powerful people on the planet were already gathered. They had been expecting this. Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo sat at the head of the conference table, his weathered face showing no emotion as he watched the recording of Daewon's execution. Around him sat the people who would decide humanity's response to this act of war. Dr. Bora, head of the Xenotech division, was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent the last decade reverse engineering alien technology, always staying one step ahead of what the Council thought humanity was capable of. Her hands were folded calmly on the table, but her jaw was clenched tight. General Tae-sung of Special Operations was a mountain of a man, scarred from battles on a dozen worlds. He had fought against alien pirates, defended colonies from raiders, and trained humanity's finest soldiers. He wanted blood, and everyone in the room knew it. Director Young Mi of Intelligence was the quietest person at the table, which made her the most dangerous. She knew every secret, every hidden alliance, every weakness in the Council's structure. She had been preparing for this day since the moment humanity made first contact with alien life. They killed him, Tae-sung said, his voice low and dangerous. They killed our ambassador. This is war. It was always going to be war, Young Mi replied softly. The moment we became good enough at their technology to threaten them, this became inevitable. The only question was when. Hyun-woo looked at each of them in turn. The question before us is simple. Do we activate the Endgame Protocol? The room fell silent. Everyone knew what those words meant. The Endgame Protocol was humanity's last resort, a plan so secret that fewer than 100 people in the entire solar system knew it existed. It was a declaration that humanity would no longer play by the galaxy's rules. It was a promise of fire and fury that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. We built it for this, Bora said. We have 300 warships hidden in the outer system. We have weapons the Council has never seen. We have agents embedded in their governments, their militaries, their corporations. We have been preparing for 15 years. If not now, when? The cost will be high, Hyun-woo said. Thousands of our people will die. Maybe millions. Colonies will burn, and if we lose, humanity might be exterminated as a threat to galactic peace. And if we do nothing, Taesung asked. If we accept this, then we are slaves forever. We bow and scrape and hope they never decide to get rid of us entirely. That is not a future I can accept. Young Mi pulled up a holographic display showing the Council's military deployments. They think they know us. They think we have maybe 50 warships, all using technology they sold us or we reverse-engineered poorly. They think our weapons are inferior, our tactics predictable, our resolve weak. They are wrong on every count. Show them what we have, Hyunwoo ordered. The hologram shifted, showing the Ghost Fleet. 300 sleek warships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They were smaller than Council dreadnoughts but faster, more maneuverable and armed with weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics. Railguns that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, plasma lances that burned hotter than stars, nuclear-shaped charges that could crack a planet. But the ships were just the beginning. The display showed hidden bases throughout human space, each one a fortress bristling with weapons. It showed the Cascade virus, a piece of malicious code designed to cripple the neural networks that most alien species depended on. It showed the locations of every Council military installation within 100 light-years of Earth, complete with detailed plans for their destruction. We can hurt them, Bora said. Badly. Fast enough that they cannot respond effectively. The first 72 hours are critical. If we strike hard enough, fast enough, we can force them to negotiate from a position of weakness. And if they refuse to negotiate? Hyunwoo asked. Then we keep hitting them until they do, Taesung said simply. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window, looking out at Lake Geneva. Somewhere above, beyond the blue sky, the stars waited. Those same stars now held enemies who thought humanity was weak, controllable, disposable. When they made first contact with us, Hyunwoo said quietly, we were excited. We thought we were joining a community of peaceful species, working together to explore the universe. It took us less than a decade to realize the truth. The Council is not a community. It is an empire, and they intended for us to be subjects, not partners. He turned back to face them. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. We tried proving ourselves worthy. And they responded by murdering our ambassador as a warning. Very well. Let us send them a warning they will never forget. The endgame protocol is activated, Hyunwoo said formally. Director Youngmi, signal our operatives. General Taesung, prepare your strike teams. Dr. Bora, bring the Ghost Fleet online. We have 48 hours to prepare. Then we show the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. As the meeting broke up and people rushed to their stations, Hyunwoo remained at the window. He thought about Daewon, a good man who had tried to bridge two civilizations. He thought about all the humans who would die in the coming war. And he thought about the future, a future where humanity would never again kneel before anyone. Forgive us, Ambassador, he whispered to the sky, but your death will not be in vain. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, ancient machines began to wake. In the outer solar system, warships powered up their drives for the first time. Across 100 worlds, human agents received coded messages and began their work. And on Earth, a species that had crawled up from caves to reach the stars prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The age of humanity being the junior partner was over. The age of humanity as a galactic power was about to begin, written in fire and determination across the stars themselves. The ice above was 3 kilometers thick, ancient and undisturbed for millions of years. But beneath it, in caverns carved by human hands and alien technology, something was waking up. Dr. Jiwon stood in the control center of Project Nemesis, watching screens light up one by one as systems that had been sleeping for a decade roared to life. She was a small woman, barely reaching 5 feet tall, but everyone in the facility treated her with deep respect. She had designed this place, had overseen every detail of its construction, had made sure that when this day came, everything would work perfectly. Now that day was here, and her life's work was about to be tested. Power levels rising, one of her technicians called out. Reactor 1 online. Reactor 2 online. All 6 reactors operating at full capacity. Jiwon nodded, her fingers flying across her control panel. Around her, the facility hummed with energy. This place was larger than most cities, hidden so deep beneath the Antarctic ice that not even the Council's most advanced sensors could detect it. Here, humanity had built its secret weapons, the tools that would change everything. Begin Ghost Fleet activation sequence, she ordered. Far above Earth. Beyond the orbit of Neptune, the Ghost Fleet waited in the darkness. 300 warships, each one painted black to absorb radiation, and coated with materials that made them nearly invisible to sensors. They had been built in secret over 15 years, constructed in small pieces at hidden facilities throughout the solar system, then assembled in the cold darkness beyond the outer planets. Captain Sung Ho stood on the bridge of his ship, the stealth carrier Indomitable. He was young for a captain, only 35, but he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They knew what was coming. They had drilled for it 1,000 times. "Sir, we are receiving activation codes," his communications officer reported. Ghost Fleet Command confirms.
The endgame protocol is active. Sung Ho allowed himself a small smile.
"All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. Power up all systems. Today we stop pretending to be weak. Today we show the galaxy who we really are." The Indomitable came alive around him. Her fusion reactors reached full power, feeding energy into weapon systems, shields, and the revolutionary drives that made her faster than anything the Council had ever built. Around her, 299 other ships did the same, a fleet appearing out of nowhere like ghosts materializing from the darkness. "Set course for the Corvin relay," Sung Ho ordered. "Maximum speed. We will be the first to strike." Back on Earth, in a dozen cities across the planet, other preparations were underway. Agent Haewon sat in a small apartment in Seoul, looking perfectly ordinary in every way. She was in her 40s, dressed in casual clothes, and could have been anyone's aunt or mother. Nobody looking at her would guess that she was one of Earth's most dangerous operatives. Her computer chimed softly. She glanced at the screen and saw the code she had been waiting for. After 15 years of careful preparation, of building her cover identity, of making friends with aliens living on Earth, the time had come to activate her network. She picked up her phone and sent a simple text message to 20 different contacts spread across Council space. The message read only, "The garden needs watering." To anyone intercepting it, the message was meaningless. But to her operatives, it meant everything. On the Torian homeworld, a human businessman named Kwan Sik received the message while eating breakfast. He smiled, paid his bill, and walked to his office. He had spent 10 years building a successful trading company that did business with dozens of Torian corporations. What nobody knew was that his company's software was installed on thousands of Torian computers, and buried deep in that software was a virus waiting to activate. On the Vren military station above their second colony world, a human engineer named Subin got the message while inspecting a power conduit. She had been working at this station for 7 years, trusted completely by her Vren supervisors. They had no idea that she had been mapping every system, every weakness, every vulnerability, waiting for this exact moment. Across Council space, hundreds of human operatives received their orders. Some worked in civilian jobs, others in military installations, still others in government offices. All of them had been carefully placed, patiently waiting, living normal lives until the day they were needed. That day had arrived. Haewon sent her second round of messages. These were more specific, targeting key individuals. One message went to an operative who worked in a Council military shipyard. Another went to someone inside the Torian intelligence service. A third went to a human who had married into a prominent Vren family and now had access to military secrets. Within an hour, Council military supply chains began experiencing mysterious problems. Shipments were delayed or sent to wrong addresses. Computer systems crashed for no apparent reason. Communication networks developed strange glitches that made coordination difficult. None of it was obvious enough to look like sabotage. It just looked like bad luck and normal system failures. But it was only the beginning. Dr. Min Seo worked in a laboratory in Tokyo, one of Earth's most advanced research centers. She was a specialist in neural networks and alien biology, particularly the way most Council species used direct brain-to-computer interfaces. She understood their technology better than most aliens did, and she had designed something that would terrify them if they knew it existed: the Cascade virus. She held up a small data chip, no larger than her fingernail. Inside this tiny piece of technology was a piece of code so sophisticated, so dangerous, that even she was frightened by what it could do. The virus was designed to attack the neural interfaces that most Council species relied on for faster-than-light communication. It would not kill anyone, but it would blind them, Make them deaf and confused, cut them off from their networks and from each other. Dr. Minseo, a voice said over her communicator. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo is asking for confirmation. Is the Cascade virus ready for deployment? Minseo looked at the chip in her hand. Once she released this into Council computer networks, there would be no taking it back. Billions of aliens would lose access to their communication systems. Governments would be paralyzed. Military forces would be unable to coordinate. It was a weapon that struck at the very heart of how Council civilization functioned. Yes, she said quietly. It is ready. But Admiral, once we use this, they will never trust us again. This is not something they will forgive. They executed our ambassador. Hyunwoo's voice replied hard as steel. They declared war on us first. We are simply making sure we survive it. Release the virus, Doctor. That is an order. Minseo nodded even though he could not see her. She inserted the chip into her computer and typed in the release codes. The virus uploaded into the quantum communication network, disguised as normal data traffic. Within hours, it would spread to every major system in Council space. Within days, it would bring their civilization to its knees. She felt no joy in what she had done. Only a grim satisfaction that humanity would not go quietly into the night. In orbit around Mars, General Tae-sung watched as his special operations teams boarded their assault ships. These were not regular soldiers. These were the best of the best. Men and women who had trained for years in zero-gravity combat, in boarding actions, in fighting aliens in their own environment. Listen up, Tae-sung said over the communication channel. Our targets are Council listening posts and spy stations throughout the inner solar system. They have been watching us for decades, gathering intelligence, reporting our every move back to their masters. No more. You will board these stations, capture or eliminate their crews, and secure all intelligence data. This is not a training exercise. This is war. Do your duty and come home alive. The assault ships launched, sleek black vessels that accelerated hard toward their targets. The Council spies would not even see them coming until it was too late. Back in Geneva, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the command center, watching displays that showed the entire solar system and beyond. Green icons represented human forces. Red icons represented known Council positions. In the next few hours, many of those red icons were going to disappear. Director Young Mi stood beside him, her tablet showing real-time reports from agents across the galaxy. Our operatives are in position, she said. The Cascade virus has been released. Ghost Fleet is moving toward the Corvin Relay. Special operations teams are launching their attacks. Phase 1 is proceeding exactly as planned. How long until the Council realizes what is happening? Hyunwoo asked. Hours for the military attacks, days for the full scope of our intelligence operations, weeks before they understand how deeply we have penetrated their systems. Young Mi smiled, a cold expression that held no warmth. They thought we were simple, predictable, easy to control. They are about to learn how wrong they were. Hyunwoo watched the tactical display, seeing his ships move into position across 100 light-years of space. Somewhere out there, Sung-ho and his fleet were racing toward their first target. Somewhere else, human agents were sabotaging Council operations. And somewhere, the Cascade virus was spreading through networks invisible and unstoppable. We have crossed the line, Hyunwoo said quietly. The Corvin Relay hung in space like a massive spiderweb made of metal and light. It was one of the most important structures in Council space, a giant station that controlled access to the slipstream lanes connecting a dozen star systems. Thousands of ships passed through it every day, and it was defended by what the Vren considered an unbreakable force. 6 heavy cruisers floated in formation around the station, each one larger than any ship humanity was supposed to have. Around them, dozens of smaller escort vessels patrolled in careful patterns. The Vren commander, a veteran of 50 years of military service, was confident that nothing could threaten his position. The humans were weak, everyone knew that. If they were foolish enough to respond to their ambassador's execution, they would be crushed easily. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Captain Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the countdown timer tick toward 0. Around his carrier, the Ghost Fleet waited in perfect formation, invisible to the Vren sensors. Human stealth technology was far beyond what the Council believed possible. The Vren would not see them coming until weapons were already firing. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Weapons charged. Fighters prepared for launch. We are ready to engage, sir. Sung-ho took a deep breath. This was it. The first real battle between humanity and the Galactic Council. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If they failed here, if the Ghost Fleet was destroyed, the war might be over before it truly began. All ships, he said calmly into the fleet communication channel. Execute Attack Plan Alpha. Show them what we can do. The Ghost Fleet dropped out of slipstream directly on top of the Vren battle group, appearing at point-blank range in a maneuver that Council physics said was impossible. Human ships used quantum navigation systems that allowed precision jumps that would make alien navigators sick with fear just thinking about them. The Vren had exactly 3 seconds of confusion before humanity opened fire. Railguns fired first, magnetic accelerators launching metal projectiles at tremendous speeds. These were not energy weapons that could be blocked by shields. These were solid slugs of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying kinetic energy that could crack a mountain. They punched through Vren shields like they were not even there and tore into armor plating designed to withstand nuclear weapons. The lead Vren cruiser shuddered as 3 railgun slugs ripped through its hull. Atmosphere vented into space. Internal explosions rippled through the ship as critical systems failed. Within seconds, a ship that had seemed invincible was crippled and dying. The other Vren ships tried to respond, turning their massive weapons toward the attackers. But human ships were fast, so much faster than the lumbering Council dreadnoughts. They darted and weaved through space like birds, impossible to target with weapons designed for slow, predictable enemies. Commander Jae-hyun, leading a squadron of destroyers, coordinated the fighter attack. Each human pilot was connected directly to their ship through neural interfaces, technology that most Council species considered too dangerous to use. But humans had perfected it, allowing one pilot to control not just their own fighter but a swarm of autonomous drones. All fighters, launch, Jae-hyun ordered. The Indomitable's launch bays opened and hundreds of small craft poured out. Each human pilot controlled 20 drones, creating a cloud of attackers that overwhelmed the Vren targeting computers. The enemy ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many, coming from too many directions at once. The fighters carried plasma lances, weapons that fired concentrated beams of superheated matter. Where the beams touched Vren shields, the shields simply burned away. Where they touched armor, metal melted like wax. The Vren had never seen weapons like these, had not believed they were even possible. A second Vren cruiser exploded as fighters swarmed it from all sides, their plasma lances cutting through the ship like a hot knife through butter. The explosion was so bright that sensors had to dim to avoid being blinded. But the Vren were not helpless. They were experienced warriors who had fought in 100 battles. They began to adapt, focusing their fire on the larger human ships rather than trying to hit the impossible-to-catch fighters. A destroyer took a direct hit from a Vren particle beam and broke apart. Its crew killed instantly. Another human ship lost its engines and drifted helplessly. Sung-ho watched his tactical display, seeing the battle unfold in real time. They were winning, but not without cost. All ships execute Pattern Delta. Focus fire on the remaining cruisers. I want them neutralized in the next 5 minutes. The human fleet responded instantly, their movements coordinated with a precision the Council had never seen. Every captain knew exactly where every other ship was, what they were doing, what they would do next. Human communications technology and training created a level of coordination that made the fleet fight like a single organism. The third and fourth Vren cruisers died within seconds of each other, caught in a crossfire from 6 different directions. Their shields collapsed under the concentrated fire, and railgun slugs tore them to pieces. The escort ships tried to protect their larger companions, but they were simply too slow, too clumsy against enemies who moved like lightning. Then Sung-ho ordered the deployment of humanity's most terrifying weapon, Fire Kasaba howitzer rounds. Authorization code Alpha 77. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers launched from hidden tubes on the larger human ships. These were shaped nuclear charges, bombs that focused the energy of a nuclear explosion into a single direction like an enormous laser beam. When they detonated, they released energy equivalent to small suns, all of it focused on a single target. The 5th Vren cruiser simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, desperately trying to maneuver away from the human attackers. The next moment, there was only an expanding cloud of plasma where the ship had been. Even other human crews watching their sensors gasped at the destruction. The last Vren cruiser tried to run, its captain finally understanding that this battle was lost. But there was nowhere to go. Human ships surrounded it from every direction. A flight of fighters disabled its engines with precision strikes, and then Lieutenant Soyeon led her boarding team aboard. Soyeon was small and quick, trained in zero-gravity combat since she was 18 years old. Her team of 20 commandos moved through the Vren ship like ghosts, their powered armor making them stronger and faster than any Vren warrior. They met resistance at key corridors, but human weapons and training proved superior. Within 20 minutes, the ship was secured. Captain Sung-ho, this is boarding team leader, Soyeon reported. Enemy cruiser is under our control. Vren crew has surrendered. We are securing the quantum core now. Sung-ho allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The quantum core contained all the ship's data, including military codes, fleet positions, and strategic plans. Earth's intelligence division would have a treasure trove of information to work with. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Secure all prisoners and begin data extraction. We have 30 minutes before enemy reinforcements could arrive. The battle for the Corvin relay had lasted 17 minutes. 6 Vren heavy cruisers and their escorts had been destroyed or captured. Humanity had lost 3 ships and taken damage to several others, but no human vessel had been completely destroyed except for that one destroyer. More importantly, the battle had proven something crucial. Human ships were not just equal to Council warships. They were superior. Better weapons, better speed, better coordination, better tactics. Everything the Council thought they knew about human military capability was wrong. News of the battle spread across Council space faster than light, carried by quantum communication networks. On the Taurian homeworld, government officials gathered in emergency sessions trying to understand how a species they had considered primitive had just destroyed a Vren battle group. On the Vren capital, military commanders demanded immediate retaliation, their pride wounded by the stunning defeat. In the council chambers where Ambassador Daewon had been executed just days before, panic began to set in. If humanity could do this, what else were they capable of? How many ships did they really have? What other weapons were they hiding? A few voices called for calm, for negotiation. Ambassador Kyung-suk of the peaceful Denari species stood before the council and pleaded for reason. "We executed their ambassador," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We gave them no choice but to respond with force. If we continue down this path, how many more will die? How many worlds will burn?" But the majority of council members were too angry, too frightened, too proud to listen to reason. The Vren demanded revenge. The Taurians called for total war. Smaller species who depended on council protection demanded that humanity be crushed before they became an even greater threat. The council voted for total military mobilization. Every warship, every soldier, every weapon would be brought to bear against humanity. They would show these upstart humans what happened when you challenged the Galactic Order. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo received the reports from the Corvin relay with grim satisfaction. "Phase 1 is complete," he told his command staff. "We have proven we can fight them and win. Now comes the hard part." New Incheon was a beautiful world, covered in green fields and blue oceans. 5 million humans called it home, mostly farmers and their families who had come to this frontier colony to build a new life. They grew food that fed a dozen other human worlds. Peaceful people who wanted nothing to do with war or politics, but war was coming to them whether they wanted it or not. Colonel Yoon-ji stood in the command center of the orbital defense station, watching her sensors with growing concern. The Vren fleet had been detected 3 hours ago, still 2 days away but closing fast. 200 warships, filled with angry warriors who wanted revenge for their defeat at the Corvin relay. They were coming to make an example of New Incheon, to show humanity what happened when you defied the council. She was a career soldier, 43 years old with 20 years of military experience. She had fought pirates and raiders, had defended convoys and protected settlements, but she had never faced anything like this. 200 ships against her small garrison force. The math was brutal and simple. "Colonel, we have updated the evacuation projections," her aide said quietly. "At current rates, we can evacuate 60% of the civilian population before the Vren arrive. The rest will not make it off-world in time." Yoon-ji felt her stomach twist. 2 million people left behind. 2 million lives depending on her ability to hold off an overwhelming enemy force long enough for them to escape. She had been given command of 5 defensive stations hidden among the asteroids orbiting the planet, each one disguised to look like a simple mining facility. She had 30 warships, good crews, and the best technology Earth could provide. But it would not be enough. Continue the evacuation, she ordered. Every ship we have that can carry people should be loading refugees. Military transports, civilian freighters, even private yachts. Get as many people out as possible. Down on the planet's surface, families packed what they could carry and rushed to the spaceports. Children cried, not understanding why they had to leave their homes. Parents tried to stay calm, tried to be strong for their kids even though they were terrified. Everyone had heard what the Vren did to colonies that resisted them. Dr. Yuna worked at the main hospital in the capital city, helping to evacuate patients. She was a trauma specialist, skilled at dealing with the worst injuries and keeping people alive against impossible odds. Right now she was trying to decide which patients could survive a trip to orbit, and which ones were too sick to move. We need more transport shuttles, she told the evacuation coordinator. We have 300 patients who cannot be moved safely without proper medical support during transit. Doctor, we barely have enough shuttles for healthy people, the coordinator replied, exhaustion clear in his voice. I will do what I can, but I cannot promise anything. Yuna nodded, understanding. War meant making terrible choices. She would save who she could and pray it was enough. The Vren fleet arrived exactly when predicted, dropping out of slipstream at the edge of the system. Their commander was named Korath, a veteran warrior who had commanded fleets for 30 years. He looked at the peaceful world on his screens and felt no mercy. The humans had humiliated his people at the Corvin Relay. Now they would learn the price of that victory. All ships battle formation, Korath ordered. We will approach the planet and destroy any military installations we find. Then we will begin orbital bombardment of population centers. The humans will learn that defying the Council has consequences. His fleet began moving toward New Incheon, confident and arrogant. They expected minimal resistance. After all, this was just a farming colony, lightly defended and far from Earth. What could these weak humans possibly do against 200 warships? They were about to find out. Colonel Yunji watched the enemy fleet approach, waiting for the right moment. Her defensive stations were still hidden, their power signatures masked to look like ordinary asteroids. The Vren sensors swept past them without detecting the massive weapons hidden inside. Wait for it, she whispered to her crews. Let them get closer. Let them think we are helpless. The Vren fleet reached weapons range of the planet. Korath prepared to give the order to fire on the defenseless world below. Then everything changed. 5 asteroids suddenly lit up with power signatures, their camouflage dropping away to reveal the true nature of the defense stations. Massive railguns emerged from hidden bays. Missile tubes opened and began launching their deadly cargo. Energy weapons charged and locked onto targets. All stations, open fire, Yunji commanded. The first salvo caught the Vren completely by surprise. Railgun slugs tore through 3 ships before they could raise their shields. Missiles with advanced guidance systems dodged point defense fire and slammed into enemy hulls. Plasma beams carved through armor like it was paper. But the Vren recovered quickly. 200 ships began returning fire, their weapons creating a storm of energy and metal. The defense stations were tough, built to withstand tremendous punishment, but they were outnumbered 40-1. Captain Dongwook commanded the defense station Fortress Liberty, the largest of the 5 platforms. His station was equipped with gravity well generators, devices that could manipulate space itself to trap enemy ships. He activated the generators, creating invisible fields that grabbed Vren vessels and held them in place. Target the ships caught in our gravity wells, Dongwook ordered. Concentrate all fire. Make every shot count. Trapped ships became easy targets. Human weapons pounded them mercilessly, overwhelming their shields and tearing them apart. But for every Vren ship destroyed, more pushed forward. The enemy fleet began to spread out, trying to surround the defense stations and attack from multiple angles. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, automated missile platforms activated. These were small, unmanned stations loaded with hundreds of missiles each. They had been waiting silently for years, just in case this day came. Now they launched their weapons all at once, sending thousands of missiles screaming toward the Vren fleet. The Vren point defense systems tried to shoot down the incoming missiles, but there were too many. Explosions rippled through their formation as missile after missile found targets. Smaller escort ships simply disintegrated under the barrage. Even the larger cruisers took significant damage. Korath watched his tactical display in growing rage. He had expected an easy victory. Instead, he was losing ships at an alarming rate. These humans were not weak. They were dangerous, clever, and willing to fight with everything they had. All ships concentrate fire on those defense stations, he ordered. I want them destroyed, now! The full weight of the Vren fleet turned toward the 5 defense stations. The barrage was overwhelming. Fortress Liberty's shields collapsed under the sustained fire. Armor plating melted and burned. Internal compartments breached, venting atmosphere into space. Captain Dongwook felt his station shudder as explosion after explosion rocked the structure. Damage report, he shouted over the noise. Shields gone. Hull integrity at 40% and falling. We have fires on decks 7 through 12. Casualties are high, sir. Dongwook looked at his crew, seeing their determination despite the fear in their eyes. They knew they were going to die. But they would sell their lives dearly and buy time for the civilians below to escape. Colonel Yoon-ji made the hardest decision of her life. Her stations were being destroyed. Her ships were outnumbered and overwhelmed, but she could still do one more thing, one final act that would save the people below. All stations activate self-destruct sequences, she said quietly. Set for maximum yield. We will take as many of them with us as we can. Her officers looked at her with shock, then understanding. There would be no surviving this battle, but they could make sure the enemy paid a terrible price. Self-destruct armed and ready, Colonel, her weapons officer reported. 30 seconds to detonation. Yoon-ji opened a channel to all her people. You have all served with honor. Thanks to your sacrifice, millions of our people will live. Tell them what we did here today. Tell them we did not surrender. Tell them we made the enemy bleed for every meter of space they took. The defense stations exploded, all 5 of them detonating simultaneously. They were not just stations, they were massive bombs loaded with fusion warheads. The explosions tore through the Vren fleet like the fist of an angry god. Ships caught in the blast simply ceased to exist. Others were thrown wildly off course, colliding with each other in the chaos. When the light faded, the Vren fleet had been reduced by half. Korath stared at his screens in disbelief. 100 ships gone in an instant. The humans had turned their own defenses into weapons of mass destruction rather than let them be captured. Retreat, he said quietly. All remaining ships retreat to minimum safe distance. The surviving Vren ships pulled back, no longer eager to press the attack. They had won technically. The human defenses were destroyed. But it felt like a defeat. They had lost 100 warships to a small frontier colony. What would happen when they faced Earth's main fleet? On the planet below, Dr. Yuna watched the orbital battle from a medical transport climbing towards space. She saw the massive explosions, saw the Vren fleet break apart. She saw the price that Colonel Yoon-ji and her people had paid to save the civilians below. 3 months had passed since Ambassador Daewon's execution. 3 months of fighting, dying, and destruction across 100 star systems. The war had reached a point where both sides were exhausted, bleeding from wounds that would take years to heal. It was time for the killing to stop. The space station called Terra Nova floated in neutral territory, halfway between Earth and the nearest Council world. It was brand new, built specifically for this moment. Human engineers had worked day and night to complete it, creating a place where enemies could meet without fear. The station was beautiful, with wide corridors and observation windows that looked out at the stars. But everyone who walked its halls knew they were walking on fragile ground. One wrong word, one moment of pride or anger, and the war would continue until one side was completely destroyed. Ambassador Su Jin arrived first, leading the human delegation. She was 50 years old, a career diplomat who had spent her entire life preparing for moments like this. She had been chosen to replace Daewon, a responsibility that weighed heavily on her shoulders. She carried his memory with her, a reminder of what happened when diplomacy failed. The council delegation arrived an hour later. Ambassador Kyung-suk of the Danari led them, along with representatives from 24 species. Notably absent were the highest leaders of the Vren and Taurians. They had sent junior diplomats instead, a subtle insult that Sujin chose to ignore. She was here to make peace, not to nurse wounded pride. The two groups met in the main conference chamber, a circular room with a table large enough for everyone. For a long moment, nobody spoke. They simply looked at each other, human and alien, enemies who had been killing each other for months. Sujin broke the silence. Thank you for coming. I know many of you did not want to be here. I know many of you still believe humanity should be punished for our resistance. But we are here because continuing this war serves no one. We are here because enough blood has been spilled. Kyung-suk nodded slowly. The Denari have always believed in peaceful solutions. We opposed the execution of Ambassador Daewon. We opposed this war from the beginning, but we were not strong enough to stop it. Now perhaps wisdom can prevail where force has failed. A Taurian diplomat, his insectoid features unreadable, clicked his mandibles. Humanity has killed thousands of our people. You have destroyed our ships, sabotaged our systems, spread chaos throughout council space. And now you ask for peace? Why should we trust you? Soo-jin met his eyes without flinching. You executed our ambassador for crimes he did not commit. You declared us inferior and expected us to accept subjugation. We responded with the only language you seem to understand, force. But we do not want to be your enemies. We never did. We want to be your equals, nothing more. The negotiations lasted for 3 weeks. Every day brought new arguments, new disagreements, new moments when it seemed the talks would collapse. The Vren demanded that humanity dismantle its ghost fleet. Humanity refused. The Taurians wanted access to human technology. Humanity agreed to limited sharing, but not complete disclosure. Smaller council species wanted guarantees that humanity would not attack them. Humanity wanted guarantees that the council would not interfere with human expansion into unclaimed space. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo watched the negotiations with careful attention. He sat in his office in Geneva, surrounded by displays showing military deployments across human space. The Ghost Fleet remained on high alert, ready to resume fighting if the peace talks failed. But Hyun-woo hoped it would not come to that. General Tae-sung entered the office carrying reports from the frontier. The Vren are pulling back from their forward positions, he said. They are consolidating their forces around their core worlds. I think they are genuinely tired of fighting. They should be, Hyun-woo replied. They have lost nearly a quarter of their navy. The Taurians have lost even more. The smaller species are terrified. The council is broken, whether they admit it yet or not. Do you think Soo-jin can get us a fair deal? Tae-sung asked. Hyun-woo considered the question carefully. I think she can get us a deal we can live with. Whether it is fair depends on your perspective. We will have to make compromises. So will they. But the alternative is more war, and I do not think either side can afford that. At Terra Nova, the breakthrough came during the 4th week of negotiations. Soo-jin proposed a completely new structure for galactic governance. The old council, dominated by the largest and most powerful species, would be dissolved. In its place would be a galactic assembly where every species had a voice, with voting power distributed more fairly based on population and territory, rather than military might. Kyung-suk immediately supported the idea. This is what the Denari have wanted for centuries, a system where small species are not simply at the mercy of the large ones, a system where justice matters more than power. But the Vren diplomat objected strongly. You want to strip us of the authority we have earned through centuries of maintaining galactic order. This is unacceptable. Soo-jin leaned forward. You did not maintain order. You maintained dominance. There is a difference. True order comes from consent and cooperation, not from fear and force. We are offering you a chance to be part of a better system. You can accept it, or you can continue fighting a war you cannot win. The threat was clear. Humanity was willing to negotiate, but they were also willing to keep fighting. The choice belonged to the Council. After 5 days of internal debates, the Council delegation agreed to the new framework. The old Galactic Council would be replaced by the Galactic Assembly. A new security directorate would be created with representatives from multiple species, including 3 permanent seats for humanity. Military conflicts would require approval from the Assembly, not just the decision of the largest powers. But the most important part of the agreement was a memorial. A station would be built in orbit around a neutral world, dedicated to Ambassador Daewon and all those who had died in the war. It would serve as a reminder that political executions and arbitrary justice had no place in a civilized galaxy. No ambassador would ever again be killed for political purposes. When the treaty was finally signed, Su Jin allowed herself a small smile. It was not perfect. Humanity would still face prejudice and challenges, but they had achieved something remarkable. They had forced the galaxy to take them seriously, to see them as equals rather than primitives to be controlled. The news reached Earth within minutes. Across human space, people celebrated. The war was over. Their sons and daughters would come home. The colonies that had been evacuated could begin rebuilding. Life could return to something like normal. But Dr. Yuna, treating wounded soldiers at a military hospital, felt mixed emotions as she watched the celebrations on the news. She was glad the fighting had stopped, but she could not forget the faces of the people she had lost, the patients who had died because the war had left them without proper medical care, the refugees who had lost everything. "We won," a young soldier said to her, his leg in a cast from injuries received at New Incheon. "We actually won." "Yes," Yuna replied softly, "but at a terrible price. 23,000 of our people died. 14 colonies were damaged. New Incheon is still uninhabitable. We won, but we must never forget what it cost us." Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo retired 6 months after the treaty was signed. He had served Earth faithfully for 40 years and he was tired. On his last day in uniform, he stood at the window of his office and looked up at the sky, thinking about all the battles fought and all the lives lost. General Tae-sung came to see him off. "You did well, old friend. You kept humanity safe when the galaxy tried to destroy us." "I did what was necessary," Hyunwoo replied, "but I hope my successors never have to make the choices I made. War should always be the last option, not the first." Dr. Bora oversaw the gradual dismantling of the most dangerous weapons humanity had created. The Cascade virus was locked away in secure storage, never deployed but never destroyed. It remained as insurance, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity could be very dangerous if provoked. The Ghost Fleet transitioned to regular defense duties, protecting human colonies and trade routes. On the frontier, Captain Sung-ho found himself leading joint patrols with former enemies. His first mission was with a Denari captain named Lyra, hunting pirates who had been raiding merchant ships. Working together felt strange at first, but Sung-ho discovered that the Denari were honorable people who shared humanity's values of justice and fairness. "Your people fight well," Lyra told him after they successfully captured a pirate base, "but I am glad we are allies now instead of enemies." "So am I," Sung-ho replied honestly. Agent Haewon retired from intelligence work and took a teaching position at Earth's diplomatic academy. She trained the next generation of human spies and diplomats, teaching them the skills they would need to navigate galactic politics. Her most important lesson was simple. Strength without wisdom leads to tyranny. Wisdom without strength leads to slavery. Humanity must master both. Years passed. The wounds of war slowly healed. Human merchants traded with alien civilizations. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers. Human soldiers trained alongside alien warriors. The galaxy learned that humanity was not going to disappear or be easily controlled.